Welcome back to another Spiny Rambles. So yeah, we went through with the second one. I don't know if we'll go through with the third one. Will this series be the longest running series on the channel, or will I murder it just like I murder everything? Just like every single individual project on this channel will be killed off one by one. The Sonic X reaction series. Chow Time. Chow Time's not canceled. Chow Time's on a one episode every year and a half basis. Anyways, welcome back to Spiny Rambles, the series where I just have to talk into a microphone for however long and not actually do any real work after that. And that's why we do it. That's why we do it. First episode was very much doing a housekeeping episode talking about the channel specifically. Now we're going to move on to other topics that interest me. Feel free, if you listen to these, to suggest some stuff that you would actually like to hear my thoughts on. And I'll tell you what, even if I don't have, I don't feel like I know enough about that to do a full episode on it. Maybe I can start each Spiny Ramble with just if there's a few suggestions that I don't have a huge discussion in me, I can at least address them at the start of each episode. We'll see. That's up to you. Don't force it if you don't actually have anything. I'm just putting the offer out there. We're talking about Rick and Morty today because I like Rick and Morty. I really thought about naming this video I Still Like Rick and Morty instead of Spiny Rambles number 2. I Still Like Rick and Morty. But then I was like, but people then are going to think it's like a real video essay. I want to make it very clear and very blatant with these that you are getting a single image followed by audio to not mislead anyone. You are doing this if you are listening to this if you have other shit you need to do and want something to listen to and you're like, well, I guess I'll listen to Spiny. I guess. So we're going to talk about Rick and Morty today. It was very interesting getting into this show. I was like a year or two late to it. Season 2 was already complete when I watched it. But I do remember waiting a really long time for Season 3. So I think I watched it right when Season 2 ended. I think I remember hearing Ego Raptor, it was oh, Ego Raptor's in the finale. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Back when I liked Ego Raptor. I don't hate Ego Raptor. I should put that out there too. But I was a big Grump fan at the time, so I was like, that's neat, I'll watch this show. And I fell in love with it. I thought it was hilarious. And it's kind of been funny to watch the reputation of the show change over the years, because then Season 3 came out, and not only was there kind of a backlash from obnoxious reactions in the fan base, like the people freaking out over the Szechuan sauce, or shouting, I'm Pickle Rick, or wubba lubba dub dub. There's the high IQ meme, the copy pasta. A lot of shit like that. And my rule is always, I don't let a fandom ruin things for me. And I also often don't even feel the need to engage with a fandom online. Because even with Spiny videos, Sonic is definitely a series with a very colorful fan base, and I like them actually. They're really neat. But there's been some, we've had some controversial people, but I don't really think it. I feel like I can still make videos on something. It's not like I'm on the fucking Reddit forum, forums or Reddit pages, just trying to get as deep into this as possible. Not that again, nothing wrong with community, nothing wrong with fandoms, but I just don't let it bother me. And I guess for me, it's easy to not let it bother me since I'm not normally engaging outside of friendships or videos. Call back to last episode. I hate using Twitter, for example. But so I never really let that side bother me. But I did see a small decline in quality in the third season, like a lot of people did. But I don't think it was that big. I think it's way smaller than some people made it out to be. And then from there on, it's just Season 4 took for fucking ever. But it's because they got a really good deal for fucking 7 more seasons. But you just kind of saw people turn on the show for one, how long it took to finally come back. I will say since Season 4, they've been doing a good job coming back pretty quickly. Sometimes it's just a year, sometimes it's a little more than a year. There has never been another 2-year gap though, ever since that. Which is more than you can say about a lot of shows, honestly. Some shows take a really long time to, even Smile and Friends took forever to get a second season out. Although the third season's coming out in fall this year, so actually once again it didn't take them nearly as long this time. It feels like once these shows finally kind of get settled in, they can work on them more consistently and get them out quicker. Rick and Morty was kind of up in the air of how they were going to go about it for a while, I suppose. But, the show continued losing its reputation. There was a lot of rolling its eyes at the story it set up, and people were losing interest because of that, because they didn't want to follow stuff up, or if they did, they made, like, they kind of mocked themselves for doing it and also mocked the audience for wanting it. We saw a rise in incest-themed episodes and jokes thrown into the episodes, which was fucking weird. Justin Roiland, I don't want to go into a lot of detail on that. Not a fun topic, but there was that. Just a lot of bad shit, you know. A lot of stuff that like really hurt the show's reputation. I guess I still really like it, but I was kind of with people for a while where I was by season 6. Once the season 6 premiere came out, I almost felt like a fool for sticking with it. But I ended up being happy I did. To give a full rundown of my view on the show season by season, I think seasons 1 and 2 are almost perfect. If there's a weak link in those first 2 seasons, I would say it's interdimensional cable 2, and it's not because it's bad, it's because it's not as good. I think every episode in those first 2 seasons is like somewhere between an 8 or 10 out of 10, where that one's like a 7. It's funny, it's good, it's just not nearly as strong as the first one. But I still, like I said, I still like it. Season 3 comes out, and I think it has some of the highest points of the entire show, but it also does have some weaker episodes, and the first episode that I ever disliked. Season 4 comes out, and it's starting to take more of a decline. I think it became more half and half. Like, half of the season I really liked, and the other half was either boring or just flat out bad. And then Season 5 came out, and I thought it was more bad than good. Were there good episodes? Absolutely. But God, I think Season 5 starts so strong. The first 2 episodes are great, and then it just doesn't pick back up. But we'll go into those. There's parts of season 5 that I like after those first 2 episodes, but there isn't like, those 2 episodes are like outstanding, you know, they definitely fall under like in between the 8 to 10 range I was talking about. I don't think any of the others do at all. I don't think any of them do. There's 1 or 2 that like I thought were, you know, funny, but maybe not that interesting concept wise, or I liked half of the episode or didn't like the other half. Season 5 I do think is more bad than good. Season 6 was a major step in the right direction. It's still a bit of a mixed bag, but I might even be willing to say it's more good than bad. It's not like half and half for season 6. I think season 6 was really starting to pick itself back up. And then season 7, and so what we have of season 8, at the time of recording this, there's 4 episodes out. The last one was the Easter special they did. I think it really picked itself back up. Is it as good as those first 2 seasons? I don't think so, but it's capable of hitting that point. The only reason it's not as good as those first 2 is because I think those first 2, every single episode is wonderful, where in 7 and even to an extent 8, they're not, there's episodes in season 7 that are in my top 10 of the whole show. But, you know, it still has some weaker ones. I'll say this much, so far of season 8 and from all of season 7, I don't think that there was a single episode that I would call bad. Just some are mediocre. So that's where we're at. I'm going to go through this episode by episode. Some of them I'm going to glance over really quickly and just say whether I liked it or not, and some I'll probably have more to talk about. I'm going to also skip, and this might be kind of annoying, but I'm going to skip seasons 1 and 2 just because I already gave my opinion on the one that I consider a weak link. I think they're all pretty good. I kind of want to talk about where I think the show has hit some trouble and where the show has, in my opinion, redeemed itself. Because I see a lot of people talk about like these last 2 seasons as if the show's only continuing to get worse, and I don't know how you say. I mean, watching it, as someone who's like watched these like almost all these episodes several times, I don't know how you can say that. I do not know how you can look at season 7 and say it's worse than season 5. It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's because of the voices. Maybe you don't like that Justin Roiland got recasted, which, again, sensitive topic. Not going to really go into that here. Maybe you just wanted the show to end, or maybe you wanted him to continue working there. I don't know. I think, given the circumstances, they made the right call. That's my opinion on that, and that's where I will drop it. Moving on to season 3, which is the first season I think has flaws. The season 3 premiere. I'm not going to read all these. I'm going to describe. I might say the name of some of them, but some of them I'm just going to say what the episode is because these names are fucking ridiculous. the Rick Shank Redemption, and that's actually a pretty tame one compared to what they do later. I thought that was a wonderful premiere. It aired as an April Fool's joke. It was supposed to be an episode of Samurai Jack, but instead they just like shadow dropped the season 3 premiere, which was a really big deal. Probably pissed a lot of Samurai Jack fans off, but hey, what are you gonna do? And it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a really fun premiere. I actually saw a great video by Emperor Lemon going into Rick and Morty and kind of talking about the decline, like I am a little bit. But he actually talked about this one a lot specifically, and how it kind of kills a lot of the themes of the show and kind of like even messes with Rick's character. So do other episodes where it becomes very clear that Rick is a character who basically seems invincible, which kind of takes a lot of the tension off, which I agree with. And I agree with a lot of his points about this episode specifically. I'll recommend his video. I think it's the only Rick and Morty video on his channel, so just Lemon, Rick and Morty, there you go. If you're interested in watching that. Good video, though. I agree with a lot of his points. And I think that a lot of what he talks about with this premiere is a symptom of what I don't like about the show and some of the choices it made. But I think as a whole, this first episode is still really fun, and it still carries the story in a way that I find interesting, with Beth and Jerry getting divorced, and that's sticking. So I still think the family drama is in it, and it is still, like, it's still moving forward. So it didn't feel like, even though this one does wrap up what happened at the end of season 2 pretty quickly, and just brings us back into episodic adventures, I still think they did enough to where I wasn't bothered by the story. I wasn't bothered by like the decisions they were making for the overarching story, which is something that the show only focuses on once or twice per season, pretty consistently. And I also just thought it was a really fun episode. It's a really fucking good time. There's a lot of jokes in it I really like. The Szechuan sauce rant at the end was hilarious. Did it get out of hand? Yes, but the whole Szechuan sauce bit was funny, and then it's just the joke gets repeated too much. Rick Manson the Stone, which is the Mad Max parody episode. I remember me and my brother, we were it was like a day before vacation. We were at my place, ready to drive like in the morning, but the new Rick and Morty was coming on tonight, so we just sat down and watched it. We were so excited. We were like so hyped up for this new season. We were both big fans of it. And then we got an episode that didn't make us laugh one time. And I will say on rewatches, I appreciate this episode more than I did back then, but it was a very disappointing return to the show, because after the season 3 premiere got shadow dropped, there was a couple months. Let's see, it actually says right here, April 1st for the first episode, and then July 30th for the second. And after that, it was a week-by-week release. And yeah, I think it's a good episode. I actually think that it shows improvements in the show's animation from season 2 to 3. I think that the show visually started getting nicer, and there's some really cool shots and backgrounds and action sequences in the episode. It's just not one of the funniest. But on a rewatch, it does make me laugh more than it did that first time. It was just kind of, maybe it was a little unfocused, too, because it is this Mad Max episode, but it's also focusing on, Morty and Summer dealing with their dad and mom getting divorced. There's also this subplot about Morty, like, getting a really buff arm. Then there's the story about Rick having these, like, robot versions of all of them. So so Beth doesn't realize that they're away. There's all of this shit going on. And I feel like something that the first 2 seasons did really well is there is a lot to the stories. There's a lot to chew on, but they stayed relatively focused. And I think we do get a lot of aimless episodes of Rick and Morty from here on out. And aimless doesn't always mean bad. I don't think this is a bad episode, but it's not choosing one concept to focus on. And I often think that Rick and Morty is at its best when it's choosing one concept and really doing everything they can with it. Because this one just kind of felt like almost every individual thing going on in it could have happened in its own episode. Still, I do like it. It's a weaker one, though. If I was to rank these episodes, which was actually originally what I wanted to do, I started writing a ranking video for Rick and Morty. But not only are there going to be many more episodes to come, so it'd be obsolete very quickly. Smile and Friends, at least it was just, we didn't know how long season 3 would take because of how long season 2 took, and also the seasons are short, so it's just and plus there's not that many out now, so it was easy to make that video. For Rick and Morty, it would have been a quite the process, and it would be obsolete like within a few months. So I just decided I can put that time into other stuff I need to get done, and we can just do this. Pickle Rick. I'm already, like, I have so many to talk about. Some of these we're going to have to go through quickly, but Pickle Rick I do need to talk about because this episode got turned on. How hard. I have seen so many people declare this is where Rick and Morty lost its way. This is like where the show like did its complete nosedive. Couldn't disagree more. I fucking love Pickle Rick. And I understand like people are like, oh, what, you just think it's haha random, he's a pickle. No. The joke and what makes this episode so engaging is is seeing Rick start off as nothing and rebuilding himself into a killing machine. That is the fun side of the episode. Whenever I hear someone talk about this episode, they don't talk about that part. They act like him sitting on the counter saying I'm Pickle Rick is the whole episode. That is the start of the episode. I love the fucking... they have like the assassin guy who's trying to kill him. I forget his name, but they team up at the end. I love that side character. I think the therapy side plot like ties into this one really well. I know I complained in the last one that like sometimes they're unfocused, but Rick and Morty is a show that normally has an A plot and a B plot, and I think these two plots come together very nicely in the end. It continues this pattern of the characters who are actually able to defeat Rick are characters who are trying to help him and not characters who are trying to hurt him. This therapist character is like one of the only people up to this point in the show who's ever been able to put Rick in his place. And she didn't do it out of malicious intent. She did it because she's genuinely trying to connect with him and help him. And she's exactly right about what she's saying about him, but him nor Beth will ever admit that. Great episode. Love this one. If I were ranking this, it'd be very high on the list. I don't care what other people say. If you don't see the fun in this one, we're just not going to see eye to eye because I think it's great. Vindicators 3, hilarious. Fucking love that one. Just nothing that deep about it. Just really funny episode. The fifth episode is not listed here for some reason, but it's the Rick and Jerry episode. And great. That's a great one too. That one is like to me. Oh, what is my? That's got to be my second favorite episode of the season. My all-time favorite we'll get to. A lot of you are probably going to guess it because there's an episode in season 3 that I think most people gravitate towards, and it's not only my favorite of the season, it's my favorite of the show. It's a very generic pick, but there's a reason for that. The Rick and Jerry episode is also wonderful, though. Very funny. It was fun to see that pair-up finally happen. Nowadays, it's actually kind of common that they'll do a Rick and Jerry episode, but this was the first time they were doing it where it was just Rick and Jerry as the pair-up. It's great. I think the side plot with Summer, Beth, and Morty is good, too, and it plays into the family dynamic pretty well. So I think they were keeping the family drama side of the show going well, too, because that was a highlight of the first 2 seasons. It's done in a humorous way, but it's still like a family drama. And I think this episode carried that out well. The trippy sequence of Rick, Jerry, and that one-off character who's trying to kill Rick in this episode, where they live like a million lives together. Like, that's a really cool, fun, trippy sequence. Rick and Jerry working off of each other is really fun. Probably the hardest I laugh in the episode is there's like this guy over a speaker giving a really lame joke, and both Rick and Jerry say nice to it, but when Rick says it, it's because they like inject him with something that makes him stupid for the flight, so he won't like pull anything. So I like that, like Rick when he is like put on. It was just funny seeing Rick put on Jerry's level for that. That was a lot of fun. Stellar episode. Rest in Rick's Lactation. That's the toxic episode, where there's a toxic version of them and the normal version of them, though the cleansed version, not normal. I love the concept here. I don't think it's the funniest. I think a lot of the humor, they were basing it off of how Morty acts, like him kind of having this like overly enthusiastic, like Wall Street guy attitude. And it wasn't really, I didn't think it was that funny. I don't think there's a lot of great jokes in this episode. There's some. But I really like the premise. I really like the designs of the toxic Rick and Morty, the animations. It's another one where the animation's kind of a highlight for me. Good color scheme for that toxic world, just to make it look as gross and unappealing as possible. Good episode, just not one of the funniest ones. The Rick Lantis mix-up, or the real title, Tales from the Citadel, I think is the best episode of the show. There are so many videos going into this one. This was the most intimidating part of that ranking video I was trying to write, because I was like, how the fuck do I it's my favorite episode, but I almost don't like know how to describe why it's my favorite episode. The social commentary is there. It's done well, but it's done in a very funny way that only Rick and Morty, like only this show could do it that way. And it's also just very interesting, and it's also carrying on this like storyline with Evil Morty, which at the time I didn't even know I wanted. Like, a lot of people were hyped after that season 1 reveal of the Morty being the one who was controlling the evil Rick, and he's actually Evil Morty. And a lot of people wanted to see that followed up. I really was okay with that being a one-off scene and that we never explore again. This episode made me care about Evil Morty. Morty's Mind Blowers, another great concept, and I think a fair replacement for interdimensional cable. They don't try anything like this again until season 7, actually. I just think that a lot of the longer shorts, because it's basically a compilation of shorts, and I think some of the longer ones are weak here, like the smudge on the telescope, or this weird light bulb one. Those are the two longest ones. They take up the most screen time, and I don't like either of them. I don't think they're that funny. But then some of the smaller ones, like the squirrels one, or like the one guy who is questioning the afterlife, like those two are like stuff like that's pretty good. I like this one as a whole. The ABCs of Beth is the first episode of Rick and Morty I didn't like, and I still don't like it, and I've tried to like it. I fucking hate the Jerry side story. We didn't get any Jerry time since him and Rick's episodes. It was nice to finally see him again, and then it's delivered in such an underwhelming way. I can't fucking stand Morty and Summer in that episode. I think they're both fucking dickheads. And that is one thing I'll say about the show. I like all 5 of the characters a lot, but there's episodes where they can be kind of hit or miss, especially as the show goes on. So Morty and Summer annoy me on this one, but I also think that the Rick and Beth storyline, while interesting, it's a good premise. I like it. It's also cool to do a Rick and Beth story since we got a Rick and Jerry story, because Rick and Beth also haven't had their own episode together where it was just the two of them yet. And that's another thing that has started to happen more and more as the show has gone on. But I just thought this one was really weak. I thought that the jokes were bad. I thought there was like a lot of gross out humor, a lot of stuff that I typically I think Rick and Morty's above doing. The ending's interesting, and it leads into some pretty major aspects of the show, like Space Beth. I can appreciate the episode, I just don't enjoy watching it. And then finally, we have the Rick Churi and Morty date, which I think is a mistake in the sense that expectations for the show after that season 3 premiere definitely made it seem like we were getting a more narrative-driven season. And as people were waiting for that more narrative-driven season to like finally kick back in, which it does in some areas, like the ABCs of Beth and the Rick and Jerry episode, I feel do that a little bit. Even the Rick Lantis mix-up to an extent with the Citadel coming back. I think a lot of people were expecting something big for the finale, and we essentially get Rick versus the president. And I think, and also like stuff with Beth and Jerry getting back together, which I thought all of that was extremely rushed. That needed its own episode. I think we could have cut Morty's Mind Blowers and split this into 2 episodes, if I'm being honest. Only reason I say keep the ABCs of Beth is because it's an important episode. I just don't like it. So I think that this is a messy one. It's another one that has no focus. It's aimless. But Rick versus the President is very funny to watch, so I do like this one. The President is one of my favorite side characters. He's great. Moving on to season 4, I'm going to try to go a little quicker this time. The first episode, which is the death crystals, Morty can see how he's going to die, and then Rick is going to different worlds. The fucking fascist joke was hilarious. Very strong start. I was a little skeptical after the 3rd season, even though I did like it overall. But this one was fully building my confidence up again. The Old Man in the Seat is another great episode. It's the app episode, and also the Rick is a shy pooper episode. It has an extremely sad ending. Like Rick and Morty likes to sneak those in sometimes. Just an ending that makes you feel depressed, and I loved this one. One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Morty is the heist parody episode, which is actually more funny if you know about Dan Harmon's feelings towards heist movies. He has gone on long rants about the Now You See Me film franchise, and those are very funny to listen to, and this episode kind of goes into that, so this one worked for me. It's not one of the most laugh-out-loud hilarious episodes ever, but as a whole, it's still enjoyable. And it's funnier, I think it's funny when you have that context, too, about Dan Harmon and his feelings towards these films. Hold on, sorry. trying to open my coffee lid up and it's getting stuck. There we go. The dragon episode I hate. Don't think it's funny. Don't think the dragon is an interesting character. The only part that makes me laugh is when the one dragon says, yeah, we like it down here because we can fuck woolly mammoths. Shut the fuck up, Michael. You're the only one who fucks that thing. That made me laugh. The Rick story with the cat is stupid because it feels like the whole thing is just telling its audience to not overthink things and have fun with it. And they do that the whole episode. That is a mindset that I do not like with this show. I hate that mindset. Not because people are telling you to just have fun and not be so nitpicky or critical or overthink everything, which is something that fans of the show, to be fair, do. But I also think I don't like it as a response, though, because it just seems so dismissive. Like when someone brings up something like a problem they have and someone says, just shut your brain off, just have fun with it. It's like, all right, well, I mean, you don't have to agree with me. You can disagree. You can make a point against it. You can talk about how you found the episode hilarious, or whatever we're talking about. How you enjoyed it. But if you're just like saying no, just shut your brain off, I hate that. That's so dismissive. And the thing is, the episode ends in a way where it kind of feels like they're agreeing with me on that, because like Rick is trying to figure out why the cat can talk at the end. And the cat says, "Oh no, you're overthinking this. Just have fun." And then Rick says, he says like something like, "I find it condescending to be told that I can't think and have fun at the same time." And like, yes, I agree with you. So why did you do this the entire episode? But perhaps, maybe I am overthinking it. Maybe I'm like getting a little butthurt about this because I just don't like that mindset and I don't like this episode. Maybe if the episode made me laugh more, I would be able to let that one go a little bit more, but it's not funny, so I can't let it go. I hate this one. Fucking terrible. It's not it's not fucking terrible, but it's a pretty underwhelming one. I do not like it. If you like it, that's obviously cool. Don't let me stop you. Rattlestar Rick Lactica, the snake episode. I don't know. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say aimless. It just I don't know. The story just, I don't think the plot beats connect that well in this one. It kind of just feels like a mess. The Jerry story about him getting stuck in the air is kind of funny to me, but it's not bad. It's just kind of like the Mad Max one where it's like, it's a little all over the place and the jokes aren't getting me that hard, but I do like the Mad Max one more than this. The Story Train episode, I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. For the first, 10 minutes of that, I have a very hard time following it every single time because of how quickly everything's moving and how complicated it is. Because it's intentionally being complicatedly meta, and I think this is the one that went too far. But you know what? With Dan Harmon and how much he loves doing meta shit on both this show and when he did it on Community, and probably other stuff he's done that I haven't even seen, maybe this is just something he kind of needed to do. So I'll let him have it. They eventually do an episode later on that makes fun of this one, and I like that one a lot more. Primordius, that one's fun. I like that one. The face-hugging aliens, the ones that kind of possess them in a way. That's great. The Vat of Acid episode, I think, is within the top 10 episodes of the entire show. It's fucking hilarious. It might be the funniest ending to an episode of Rick and Morty ever. And the time-lapse sequence with Morty and that girl he's with before the rewind button gets hit again, or the save state button gets hit again, is extremely well done. There's one where they're going on a camping trip and Rick and Beth are kind of working together and Jerry kind of becomes like a king of his own society and Rick fights God at the end. Aimless, not that funny. Rick and Beth bonding is cool, I guess. Star-Mort, Return of the Jerry, aimless. It finally gives some continuation of story, but the entire time they're doing this, they're comparing it to Star Wars and bitching about it happening. And this is another major issue I have with Rick and Morty. It is the complaining about doing the overarching story while still doing it. And it's also doing tropes and complaining that they're doing said tropes. It's not that funny. It's actually kind of annoying. And you know what? It's not the acknowledgement that's bad. It's the rolling your eyes. It's the shot where the character's eyes, their eyelids are halfway down, and they just have an unimpressed look on their face. That's what fucking Family Guy does. You're better than that, Rick and Morty. I think you're better than that, at least. Family Guy is fine. I don't hate that show, but there's a lot of scenes in like some Rick and Morty episodes and Family Guy episodes where it just feels like the writers are saying we're smarter than this thing we're talking about. We're annoyed that this thing exists because we wouldn't do this because we're smarter than this, and if we do it, we're gonna act like we're better than it by making fun of it. But even though we're still doing it, it's lame. It's fucking lame. And I think the best comparison I can make with Dan Harmon's work is Abed in Community. If you've ever talked to me about the show before, you've definitely heard me make this point a lot because I make this point a lot. On Community, Abed does the same thing with tropes. He constantly points them out. He constantly acknowledges when they're doing a parody of a movie or they're doing a common trope in whatever genre they're tackling for that episode. Because Community does a lot of the same stuff that Rick and Morty does in that sense. Very different shows, but the personality of Dan Harmon makes its way into both shows a lot, which makes sense. He's the series creator, and he's a series creator that stays very close to the shows he works on. He doesn't hand it off to someone and fuck off. But Abed, when he does it, he celebrates it. He loves it. He adores it. You're watching this character be excited that they're doing this, and only rarely does he call one out that he doesn't like. It's funny when he doesn't like it because it's the unexpected. When Abed like hates a trope, when he gets mad at someone for doing it, because it catches you off guard. It's because, oh, I guess this is just one that didn't sit well with him. When Rick and Morty does it, they are always complaining about it. They're always bitching about it. And it's normally not very funny. It's normally not very good. The Space Beth stuff is kind of... I kind of like that Space Beth exists. I kind of like that they took that as a route for Beth, because I feel like out of the 5 main characters, Beth is the one that had the least going on. And with that, she feels like a more complete character now. And I like that we also kind of split the personality up a bit, because I like the stubborn Space Beth, but I also like the friendlier Mom Beth. I like her. I like certain aspects of her being toned down for the stay-at-home mom one. All right, she's not even a stay-at-home mom. She's a horse doctor on the show. I forgot about that. They don't focus on that a lot anymore, and they toned aspects of like the attitude down with her for that, but they also kept a lot of that for the space one, and I think that works out pretty good. The season 5 time. God, I'm getting tired. I keep telling myself I need to speed this up, but I feel like I think we can get through these quickly. There's I think we're moving into the season that I think is mainly not very good. But the first 2 episodes are great. They're both very funny. One is the one where like Morty keeps trying to go for that portal to get the wine, and time keeps moving at a very fast pace. So I like that one. That one was very clever. That one was very creative, very dark, very funny. I like what's his Nimbus, Rick's rival. That's another character who is able to get the best of Rick, but it's in a sense that he's trying to help him. It's the same thing with the therapist. So I like that a lot. The decoy episode is really funny, really good. I think it might actually have my favorite post credit scene of the entire show, with the Wood and Jerry like not being able to die, and it just like time loops all the way back around to where Christianity happens a second time. Oh, that paired with the Who Wants to Live Forever, which I think that scene is a parody of something like, I think it's called Westworld, so I don't know how much of that is Rick and Morty's decision and how much of it is copying from that show, but I still really love that scene, and I love the music choices and the shot choices. It's a very effective scene. There's so many cool designs in that episode. Those 2 episodes made me feel like we're in for like a great season. Like they fully got back on track now. No. The next one is the Captain Planet parody, and I think some people really like this one. The only thing I like about this one is it kind of explores Beth's role as a mother to Morty in a way that I thought had a very sweet ending. I'm not into the Rick and Summer story, even though I kind of like their bond that grows throughout the show. And I think the Captain Planet story is creepy. I think it's an adult with a relationship with a child, and it's not being done ironically. It's weird. I know it's kind of like oh, but she's not a person. It's weird. I don't like it. If you like it, I'm not shaming anyone who does like it, because it is like this weird gray area. I'm not saying like, if you like this, then you support this. No, I'm not like that. It's just one that weirds me out. I don't care for that. If you like it, I'm sure you have an innocent reason for liking it. Rick Dependent Spray is probably the most hated episode of the show, and it's close for me. It's not the one I hate the most. It's the giant sperm episode. It's the one that creates the incest baby. This is where the show starts getting fucking bizarre. Don't like it, but there's at least a moment or two that makes me... I love it when Rick finds out what Morty did. And then he's like, how was it? Like, that cracks me up. Stuff like that. There's like little interactions that are funny. And we got the president back, so that's always fun. But there's a way better president episode coming up. But as a whole, it's one of the worst. I don't think it's the worst one, but the worst one does follow it up. We're not far from it. There's that weird episode with the torture planet. It's a Rick and Jerry and Beth episode, and maybe it's better off if it's just Rick and Beth or just Rick and Jerry, because didn't like the jokes in this one. A buddy of mine, I think it was Matt, said that there is something specific this episode is parodying, and as someone who understood the parody, he found it more funny. Fine, that's an acceptable answer. Maybe I'm just missing context. I didn't really laugh once at that storyline, and I don't think the Summer and Morty story is much better with Rick Ship, even though I do like them using Rick Ship as like another character. But as a whole, yeah, week episode. We got 3 bad ones in a row. Thankfully, we get the Thanksgiving special, which is just Rick and Morty trying to get pardoned by the president, trying to trick him by turning into turkeys. It's a fun episode. This one is good. So we aren't completely void of quality episodes from here. But it's the reason I still say the season's more bad than good is because even though this one is funny, it's not like in the top 20. It's not like one of the best of the best. It's just a funny episode. And that's sometimes the highest point that season 5 can hit. It's like, at least you made me laugh again. The fucking giant robot ferret. Well, I hate this one. I hate it. I don't think the Mafia movie parody they're doing with the voiceover is funny. The anime girl villain is an especially lame joke for Rick and Morty. That's something I expect on a completely different show. Just like the most generic anime reference either. They do a better job this season with an anime reference. They've done a better job with an anime reference in the past. Just the fucking Akira shit in the season 4 premiere was better than that. Not fond of this, and it comes back with them bringing the incest baby back, and it felt like they were, at the time, it felt like they were doing it in a way where this character could continue to show up. And they haven't since then. They have completely ignored it since then. I don't recall a single time it coming back up. Maybe it has, but I don't remember it. I hate that they brought that back. I hate that. That's so fucking weird. That's so fucking gross. It's shock value. It's shock value. And again, I'm gonna throw Family Guy under the bus. But again, at least Family Guy knows what it is. I would expect that from Family Guy. I expect better from the show. They're not that lowbrow. And they also try to paint it in an emotional way, which is fucking bizarre. Like, it's like the heart of the episode is that Summer's concerned about this baby in space that the military's gotten a hold of, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, no, you're not gonna get an emotional reaction from me from this. This is fucking weird. Fuck you. Hate this one. Worst episode of the show. After this, we finally get a follow-up to Rick and Bird Person, and Bird Person's been in Rick's garage since the season 4 finale, and we get a look at their relationship up to this point. Also, Rick slowly getting Bird Person to come back to who he is. And it's good in the sense that it's interest in character development, and it's cool to see some of that backstory. I don't think the jokes are very good, but it's not bad. I could see some people really loving this one. Now I make it to the 2-part finale. The first one is more so focused on Rick getting 2 crows to replace Morty, and then focusing on how their relationship is toxic and how they split up at the end. And then the finale is like, half of it is continuing that, and then the other half is a Citadel episode, and it's such a bizarre choice. The pacing between these two is not as bad as you would think it is of how I'm describing it, but it is still bizarre that, like, again, like half of the... It's probably a little less than half, but a good chunk of the finale is just following this episode up only to be dropped as something else. Now, there are themes that carry out. Really, the theme of these two episodes is what are Rick and Morty to each other, and what's set up in this first story that's completely dropped for a Citadel episode is at least relevant in the final scene, with the two finally kind of embracing working together. Throughout, it feels like up to this point, Rick's Morty being replaced was always an option, and with this season 5 finale, it's no longer an option. The two do have a real bond now. Like, it was kind of up in the air for the first few seasons if Rick cared about Morty. Then the toxic episode kind of confirmed that he does, but he finds it irrational and he doesn't like that he cares about Morty. And this one just kind of finally feels like it's embracing, no, these two are two people who are close to each other. These are two people who care about each other. Despite how evil most Ricks are, this Rick is not going to fuck his Morty over. He's not going to throw him out and replace him with someone else. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of a nice conclusion. But they're rolling their eyes the entire time they're doing it. They take that fake backstory for Rick from season 3 and now say, nope, it's just real now. And then they end all of it off by saying, cool, and everyone can shut up about it. And it's like, you guys set up something interesting, and people wanted it followed up. I'm sorry, like, why did you set it up if you didn't want people to be interested? You didn't want people to be invested. If you just wanted to be episodic, truth be told, you never needed to have any continuity. Well, continuity's fine. You didn't have to have any, like, big story set up. You didn't have to end season 2 on a cliffhanger, a depressing cliffhanger, for that matter. So, I don't know. Again, maybe they really do just think people are going to laugh at that, and it's not really intended to get the reaction that it does from a lot of people. But it's not... The good thing is they stopped. Because from here on out, story-driven episodes don't do that anymore. Maybe they finally got the memo. Maybe they just felt like... Maybe they didn't... Maybe it has nothing to do with the reaction from fans, and it was just like, all right, we've harped on them enough. Let's just take it seriously now. Because when they do story-driven episodes from here on out, they're good. I think all of them are good. The season 6 premiere is great. It sets up the next big arc for the show, with season 5 kind of taking the Citadel out of the picture, and not taking Evil Morty out of the picture entirely, but what Evil Morty set out to accomplish is now accomplished. We'll see him again. But the season 6 premiere is wonderful. It's really funny. It's really interesting to revisit the Morty's original timeline. The fact that Jerry has a timeline of origin that he's not in anymore because of the fucking Jerry Jamboree was really funny. That was a callback I wasn't expecting. It is kind of funny because you know after that episode where they dimension hopped, that the characters we followed since then are all of them are the Summer and we know that the Summer and Beth after that episode are the Summer and Beth we've continued to follow. The first time Rick and Morty destroyed the world and had to universe hop. There is a scene in Morty Mind Blowers where they had to switch universes because of squirrels, because the squirrels figured out that they were onto them. But I will say, Jerry having his universe of origin does at least confirm that most of season 2 is the Jerry we know. And therefore, the squirrels happened before that. Because it'd be a different Jerry then. So, yeah, that's a really funny episode. That's a really interesting episode. Rick and Mort well lived. They bring back Roy. I love the Roy stuff. It's an interesting concept, and it's really funny with Morty's mind being split up into just like how many NPCs. It's a ton of NPCs in the game. I forget how. I can't remember if they do hundreds of thousands or millions. But it's a good one. The Summer Die Hard story, I don't like as much. It's not that funny. Summer running around shouting, Die Hard, Die Hard. It felt like something that they thought was way funnier than it actually would be, but I'm sure there's some people who like it. Bethnick Twinstinct, hate that one. It's aimless, again, which again, aimless isn't always bad, but this one, in this case, it kind of is, and Beth wanting to have sex with herself is not that interesting of a story, and not only do I not think it's that funny, it feels like that's almost kind of it almost feels like the episode thinks it's smarter than it is. Like some of the conversation that Beth has with her space self, I think you can have some really interesting conversations there, and they're choosing to do this instead. Don't like it. It's fucking weird. It's not quite incest, but I don't blame people for pairing this one up with all the other incest episodes they've done. It's weird that there's a category for that now, by the way. Community did it once, but Community, it was really funny because it was once, and it was like it was a shock value joke, but it literally ended with the writer having to write himself into the episode talking about how he's the one who decided to go this route as a condition for making the episode. So that was funny, at least. Night Family, great premise, very creepy. Probably the most disgusting thing I've seen in the show, with like them making Rick eat the fucking dirty dish, like scrub off the dirty dishes into his mouth. Like, it's disgusting. Very unsettling shit. Interesting episode for summer, where we kind of there's a lot of people who talk about how, like, if there's any character that's actually the most like Rick, it is Summer, and this episode kind of takes that a little further. So I liked that. We get another Rick and Jerry episode, and it's another incest episode too, where Jerry gets a Chinese cookie that says you will have sex with your mother, and the entire episode is Rick and Jerry working together to try to prevent that from happening. Hilarious episode, great episode. Again, it's the only thing with that one is, if they didn't have so many fucking episodes that like had incest as a topic, this one wouldn't be that weird. I could accept it because there's like actually a reason for it, and there's a funny reason for it. So I was like way more open to it with this one, but because they've already done this so many times these last few seasons, it was still weird. But at least this one's funny. At least this one's interesting. Jurassic Mort, dinosaur episode. I don't know. Don't hate it, but it's kind of a forgettable one, honestly. Full Metal Jack Rick is kind of their Full Meta Jack Rick is kind of their follow up to the Story Train episode, and kind of even makes fun of it. And like that Community episode did with that one writer, brings one of the writers involved with that episode as a character into this episode. So they're still doing the meta shit, but this one's actually criticizing them for doing it. And like I said, that normally annoys me when they're like rolling their eyes at something that they're doing. But this time it worked a little better for me because, one, they're criticizing something that they've done in the past that I think actually might deserve a little bit of criticism. But two, there's just funny ideas in this one. There's just funny jokes. There's all these characters built around different different story tropes or inconsistencies. Like, there's a character named Retcon, and then Morty's like, well, why can't he just be Retcon? You know, there's people named Rhett, and then he says, it was, and it always, my name is Retcon, and it always was. And it's just like, I love that. I love shit like that. This one's pretty good. They make their first jab at Space Jam. We have another one coming. Analyze Piss. This one's weird because I really like this one. I really enjoy this one. There's like a bit of a fun Jerry story to it, but I think like it's not only a funny episode with Rick, but it's actually kind of an endearing and emotional one with Rick, with what he does for this person he doesn't even know, and we really start to see. To me, it's one of the episodes that communicates the growth in Rick's character the best. There's some scenes of him and the therapist that are great. I really like this one until the final scene, and this is where I think I might get accused of overthinking things the most. But the thing is, as funny as this show is, I do care about the characters. I do like the more emotional writing it has at times. And I think that the ending of this episode is way too fucking mean-spirited, and I hate it for that. And that's not normally a critique, because the show can be extremely mean-spirited in a way that feels like it fits, and it's funny. But this one is just, Rick tries to fucking open up to Morty at the end of the episode, something that his family is constantly trying to get him to do. And Morty shouts at him and tells the whole family, and then they're all yelling at him, and it's just like, I fucking hate, like, it's so clearly supposed to be funny, but no, it's unlikable. I fucking hate all of them at the end of that episode. Fuck Jerry, fuck Summer, fuck Beth, fuck Morty. Jerry didn't do anything that bad, but, I mean, he kind of did, actually, but it's just before that scene. But yeah, I like this episode for Rick. Everyone else can go fuck themselves. No, that ending, like, actually makes me angry. Terrible fucking ending to an otherwise good episode. Hey, Rick and King Morturs Mort. This is the one with, like, the Sun Knights or whatever. It's okay. Kind of leads into the finale in an interesting way, I suppose, with, Rick creating a friendlier version of himself that we don't even realize replaces him in this episode. We don't learn that until the next one. So this episode leads you to believe that it's just him. It's okay. It's an alright one. It's not one of their best, but it's reasonably funny and Yeah. Finale, another funny president episode. Morty gets a lightsaber and accidentally drops it straight down. That's kind of fun. Like a lot of weaker episodes, yeah, I would call. I'm saying this a lot. I'm sorry I'm saying it so much, but I think it's a good summary of how I feel about a lot of them. It's aimless. There's a lot of shit going on, and some of it connects fine, and others, like, I just think it has too many ideas, and it's not settling on stuff that it probably should. Because again, I do think Rick and Morty is at its best when it has like a specific thing they're focused on for an episode or for a concept. But I do like this one still. It's funny and it has a good ending that leads us into the next season about Rick going after his rival. Granted, we don't. Next time we actually focus on that, it's the episode where he kills the rival. If you're still watching this far ahead, you shouldn't care about spoilers because what the fuck are you doing? You shouldn't even have watched this if you care about spoilers and you haven't seen this. How Poopy got his poop back. Shouldn't it be how Poopy got his butt back since he's Mr. Poopy Butthole? I don't know. Anyway, doing a whole episode about Mr. Poopy Butthole is, in my opinion, a bad idea. He's better left off as a we get an update every post-credit scene, or he gets a smaller scene in the middle of an episode, like the heist episode. But maybe they just felt like they earned it with all of those scenes. At the very least, I can say I enjoy this one because we get the return of characters like Bird Person and Squanch, and their neighbor Gene plays a big role, which is kind of funny. I don't remember if Gearhead is in this episode or not, honestly. It's kind of a fun episode, though. They bring in enough like characters we don't see that often to where I was actually kind of having a good time with it. Even though I do agree with the sentiment, Mr. Poopy Butthole does not need his own episode. The Jarrett Trap is a wonderful Rick and Jerry episode where they don't do a Freaky Friday, but they more so shuffle the brains, so we get two completely different characters that have aspects of Rick and Jerry's personalities. It's a good time. I like this one. It was clever, actually. It was a very clever way to do the body swap episode, where it's like they're using the body swap as like a ground to start the story, but they aren't. But they aren't fully committed to that. They want to do something a little bit more unique. And they do it in a way that I would say is not aimless. And I think the side story, the B-plot with Morty is great and ties into this one very well as well. Air Force Wong is an episode with Rick, the president, and Rick's therapist. And we also get the return of Unity from Season 2, which was a surprise to see back. And they kind of continue to play with that concept from that episode with her being a hive mind. But they do it in a way that I think expands on it and expands on their relationship and also continues to expand Rick's character in a way that I think is very effective. It's also probably the furthest we go with the president in terms of his character, where he's kind of slowly been getting more... In the episode he's introduced, Get Swifty, he is kind of just a cool president, you know? Like, he gets along with Rick and Morty just fine, and as the show goes on, they make him more and more pathetic. In this episode, is that finally all coming out, but they kind of have a nice bond at the end of the episode, and it's fun. It's a good one. That's Amorte is the spaghetti episode. I remember when this one came out. This is where one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is because I saw even people I watch online talking about how horrible this one was, like how bad it was, how this is like truly like the show's hitting a new low, and it's like I would easily put this in my top 10. I think this episode is like hilarious. I think it's emotional. I think their cover of that song that I can't... What's that song? I kind of want to look that up. What's it called again? Live Forever. They do a cover of Live Forever. That's great. If you have not been watching the show for years, and you've missed a lot of them, I think That's Amorte is one to check out. I think it is one of the strongest episodes of the entire show. I genuinely love it. It's funny. It's thoughtful. It takes a really simple and stupid premise and goes as far with it as it possibly can. It also makes makes interesting commentary on like the meat industry. It's doing a lot, but it's not doing it aimlessly. It feels very focused. It feels like everything is right in place where it needs to be. And I think it's just a really funny, down to earth, good episode that people should watch. After that, we get a major lore episode, which is Rick finally taking on Rick Prime. We have Evil Morty in there. The whole thing is awesome. It's another great episode. It's continuing the story, again, without constantly rolling its eyes that they're doing that. They expand on Evil Morty in a way that's interesting. They have Rick finally fulfill what he's supposedly been trying to do. It's really only been a focus for these last two seasons, but what he supposedly has been trying to do since the start of the show. And we even end it to a great callback to that season 1 episode after the world was destroyed. And Rick and Morty had the universe swap where they play that same song up, but now it's from Rick's perspective of being completely lost and distraught, where the first time it was Morty. Wonderful episode. Like, really, they pulled themselves back together. Rick Fending Your Mort is kind of a return to something like Morty's Mind Blowers or Interdimensional Cable, where it's a bunch of shorts. I think this one's a lot stronger than Morty's Mind Blowers. I like pretty much all of the all of the flashbacks they do, and I think that the main, like, the story kind of connecting them all together is a lot of fun too. It's really funny. This is another one that people started to call out because of Leg Rick. They're like saying, "Oh, they're doing this again." They're making fun of themselves. They are like, it's a light jab at themselves for Pickle Rick. All right, like, calm the fuck down. I heard so many people saying, like, "Oh, look what them doing." If you watch the episode, it is so clearly self-aware, and you don't have to laugh at the joke, but don't say, like, "Oh, this is what the show's like evolved to. This is what it is now." No, it's not. It was a joke. So we have a really strong season so far, and then we get this Summer and Morty episode, kind of Rick Summer and Morty episode. It's hard to explain because it's I won't say this one's aimless. It's not out of focus. It's just kind of a weird story where there's just like this weird mini version of Morty that just keeps saying "open your mind," and I don't. The story's weird on this one, but the main point of it does kind of seem to be like building up Rick and Summer's like character growth between each other, like their chemistry together, their bond. Where we get some pretty blunt conversations between Rick and Summer in this one, and I really like them. I think they're very interesting. We kind of learn why Rick does go harder on Summer, and it's because, like, Summer is actually somewhat like Morty is Rick's buddy. Morty is probably the one that Rick cares about the most, if I had to say there is someone he cares about the most, but Summer seems to be someone he respects more, and I think this was a good episode to communicate that with. I like it. Rise of the Numbericons, the movie, is probably the worst episode of the season, and I've heard some people declare this one as the worst. I don't agree. I think that it's kind of funny that they're doing this. That they're following the water tea story up that they like did at the end of Get Swifty. So I kind of appreciate it for that. At the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, it's funny for the first like 5 minutes. Like, oh my god, they're doing a whole episode with this. But the joke kind of, it stops being funny after a while. Like, it kind of feels like the whole thing is one big joke. And I've seen shows do stuff like that, where they focus on a smaller character and try to do like a completely different adventure with them. Like, American Dad did a great one with the character Jeff, where he's out in space, and he teams up with Sinbad trying to get back to Earth. Like, that one is amazing. It has amazing music. It has like a lot of really funny scenes. It has an interesting story. And this one, it's kind of like that in the sense that they're doing something so out of place with the rest of the show, and it's like this journey that has nothing to do with anything else, and it's something that maybe you wouldn't even expect them to follow up in a way. But you kind of feel like after a few minutes, okay, I get it. But no, you have a whole episode to watch still, so it's a weaker one. It's also the only episode of the show to date that doesn't have Rick in it, which is kind of an interesting thing about it. But I don't love it, but I can't say I hate it either. I don't agree with people who say it's the worst one, because I think its biggest crime is just being boring, because once you get the joke, and you're kind of just watching the same thing repeat. So, yeah, Mort Ragnarok, oh my god. This one's fun. This one, not much to say about this one. It's a funny episode. I like it. Fear No More, one of the best finales the show has ever had, if not the best one. It's Rick and Morty going into a fear hole because they've become too desensitized to their journeys. Like, nothing scares them anymore, and this one like delves really deep into what Morty's true fears are, and it's a funny episode. It's a visually creative episode. It's a dark episode. It focuses on stuff that we haven't been able to see yet, like what Rick and Diane's relationship was like. But it also has a really good heart, a lot of emotional. I mean, even though it's a fake scene, I love the scene of Morty growing up and Rick trying to keep himself like alive still. Like they do that through a montage that just ends abruptly with Morty growing into Jerry before he once again wakes up in the hole. But I still appreciate the scene. And they have a good song for that one too. And the episode is great. It's overall just a wonderful ending to the season. So when we really look back at this whole season and everything I've spoken about, the Mr. Poopy Butthole episode and the Water Tea episodes are really the only two that I think are weak. And they're not. I don't think either of them are bad. I just think that they focus on things that aren't as interesting. But I think every other episode this season was great. And it's just like, yeah, this is really close to the quality of the show started on. And maybe some people are just going to disagree with me on that. Maybe, and again, like the voices are different now. My opinion on the new voice actors, I think they both do a pretty great job, but Rick's voice, sometimes it sounds a little too deep, but most of the time I think he nails it. Morty's voice is always a little too high. But it feels like that's just permanently where it's going to go now. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we just need to adapt to the new voice. It's still distracting me, but I'm not going to act like Morty, like the lines aren't delivered funny. It's just I can tell the difference with Morty. Where if Rick, he really, again, sometimes the voice is like deeper than I expect it to be, but most of the time I think he sounds good. Funny enough, like the one clip that got posted so much was the "I'm a leg, Morty, a leg," and that's one of the shots where. That's one of the lines where his voice was like especially deep, where it like really doesn't sound like the same character. Even it sounds like an impression in that scene, but the voice is too deep. But it's normally not that deep. It's kind of interesting how that happens. But moving on to season 8, which we're only going to talk about 4 episodes. By the time I release this, a 5th one will be out, but I'm recording this early because I want to just, if I'm going to release this Ramble series, I only want to do it once a week. How long have I been going? My voice is dying. I gotta record Lost World tonight. Jesus, I'm like completely destroying my voice before doing that. Just by talking, I'm not doing any silly voices. I'm just by talking. Summer of All, I'm really, I'm ready to wrap this up. I'm gonna speed through these. All 4 of them are good. Summer of All Fears was a interesting opening, good summer episode. Funny storyline. It was a strong start. Valkai, Rick, whatever. It's a Rick and Space Beth episode. I think it's the best Rick and Beth episode we've been given so far. Continues Bird Person's story a little bit with his daughter. That was fun. Good to see. It's always nice to see Bird Person. And it's another one that like really goes into character development for both Space Beth and Rick. So I appreciate it for that. Not one of the funniest ones, but it has its moments. The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly is a great one. It's a follow-up to the Citadel episode. It's definitely the most like lore-heavy episode so far. But I think the entire thing is really interesting, just like the Citadel episode. It's not quite as good as the Citadel episode, but I think it's close. I actually think it's pretty close. The big difference between this one and that one is that where the Tales from the Citadel is like a bunch of different stories that kind of connect thematically. This one is just kind of one story that I mean, maybe you could argue it's 2, but they're like 2 stories that are like strongly connected and come face to face, relatively early in the episode. So I thought it was a very interesting one, and I also think the ending of it's hilarious. And then The Last Temptation of Jerry kind of falls back into that aimless thing I keep bringing up. I think it's a little all over the place, but it is funny. I laughed a lot at some of the jokes in this one. A lot of them were just like really, really basic interactions where Morty calls Rick old and says, "Fuck you, Morty, you're old." And then Morty's like, "Fuck you, Rick." Like they're just like genuinely angry over that like tiny interaction they had. And then there's another one where like Rick pronounces where they're like says where they're going, and Morty like immediately mispronounces it, and Rick is just like, "Are you messing with me?" And like, I don't know, just like little moments like that, little bicker moments between the two like that always crack me up, and they were delivered very funny in that episode. It's not a great one. I think it's the weakest of the season so far, and again, it really does just come down to the story not being as good as some of the other ones. But joke wise, I laughed. I think it's the hardest I've laughed at any of these episodes. They even took a dig at good old Sazloff, or however the fuck you pronounce that guy's name. Anyway, I'm done. I got through it. That's my opinion on Rick and Morty. I still like it. I think they really picked themselves back up. I think the show has improved significantly. Is it a shame that the show couldn't like maintain the quality of those first two seasons throughout? Yes, but am I happy to see it like kind of getting itself back up there? Also, yes. We at least are going to make it to season 10, so we've got 2.5 seasons left, and maybe it'll get picked up again after that. I don't know if Rick and Morty is a show that can really survive the seasonal rot, and that's why it's kind of a shame that they went through seasonal rot early and then picked themselves back out of it. Because I don't think the show will continue to improve forever. I think it could keep making steps in the right direction like it has been for a while, and that's again why I'm doing a video titled "I Still Like Rick and Morty." But I think if we make it to like season 20, I don't really have faith in a lot of shows that they can stay good that long. Like most shows really do go for that seasonal rot if they go on that long. I guess there's some exceptions, but there's normally some level of it. Like I think South Park and American Dad and Bob's Burgers are shows that were able to go on much longer than most shows before they got bad. I'd even argue to an extent that I don't think any of those three shows are bad now. I think that they still deliver on good episodes. But there's no denying that they've, it's not as good. It's just because you can't do a show that long. Rick and Morty, like, you see more and more of the episodes becoming the word I've used a million times in this video, aimless, and I think it's because, like, yeah, how can they keep coming up with, like, all these, like, great sci-fi ideas for these two to deal with, and I think the answer is, yeah, you can't. Like, eventually it's not that you run out of ideas, it's that you run out of ideas to make these specific characters fresh, and it's time to move on to something else. I think that we're in a high point of the show right now. So I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. And I do wish the people working on the show the best, and I will continue to support it. I loved it when it first came out, or when I first saw it. Like I said, it took me a while to get started on it. But I've loved the show for almost 10 years now. The show's been on for 10 years, and I've loved it for almost all 10 of those years. So even though it's had its low points, I'm glad I stuck with it. And I'd like to continue sticking with it for many years to come. This has been a Spiny Ramble. Thanks for listening.